Thanks, Dan, for joining us today. Tell me, how did you get into Status Quo?
Well, hello, Jamie. Thanks for having me on here. Should be a pleasure, this. One of my favourite subjects. Well, what got me into Quo? My dad, years ago, he handed me 12 gold bars, the cassette. He had a new car. We went out for a spin in it, and I thought, this is good. What's playing here? And got out at the end, he handed me the cassette. So I was about 9 years old then, and that really sort of stuck with me. I've bought a couple of copies of that album since on sort of different formats, and it was interesting that the cassette version I had started with Mystery Song on it. So that was sort of my first intro. So it was sort of side B. A lot of the other versions I've seen start with Rocking All Over the World. So it was that straight into Roll Over, Lay Down and The Rain, and really good, solid Quo stuff that sort of stuck with me. Then, an opportunity, Quo coming to my hometown. I'm originally from Guernsey, the Channel Islands. So my first big gig, June 1992, Quo came over, and I heard my folks talking about it. I sort of said, well, what's all this? What's this? Status Quo, I've got a cassette of theirs. So I sort of muscled my way in. My dad got an extra ticket. And to say my mind was blown would be an understatement. It was just an amazing experience. And, going in as a 12-year-old, never seeing anything like that, quite a spectacle. It was incredible.
And that was, 1992? So that was something of a golden period for them live.
It would have been just before the Live Alive Quo gig. So they were absolutely on fire then. Really, really good stuff. I remember at that gig, one of the most impressive things I felt was just the bass, the sound of the bass. My whole body vibrated to it. Incredible. A very good set list. I think they started with Down, Down, actually. I remember the curtain dropping, and there they were, and all the lights and everything. Just amazing. That Christmas, then my dad got me the Rock Till You Drop album on cassette, and with that 4,500 times, I wore that cassette out very quickly, and I've been through several copies of the CD since, actually. So that's sort of my sort of entry to Quo at that sort of period where it is sort of known out there generally by Quo fans. Perhaps a bit of a lull, but I think live they were absolutely on fire then.
Well, I know that certainly in some groups, Rock Till You Drop is regarded as quite a high point in their recorded output, but Thirsty Work perhaps not so much.
Yeah, they just they put some sheen on it. It doesn't really need it with Quo. I always think a bit rough around the edges. It sort of works for me. And most sort of other music I found over the years is just sort of simplicity that I like. You don't have to put masses of overdubs on and lots of effects. I just like the rawness of it.
And you should know something about that because you're a musician yourself, aren't you?
I dabble, yes, I have over the years, and it inevitably came via Quo. Although having said that, my parents were heavily involved in a folk and blues club over on Guernsey. So we had the artists come and stay with us every so often. So growing up, I'd have... Actually, this is where the Quo universe is, crosses over all over the place. But I remember being chucked out of my bedroom and going to sleep in my brother's room for the night because Maddie Pryor was in our house and she had my room. So the Steel Eye Span connection there. So music and so on. My dad was a non-profit making club that they were involved with. And my dad was the sound engineer most of the time on it. So I tended to mix the support acts as they'd come in. And my dad had a little home studio as well. So as I was learning the guitar and getting a band together, my first band in 1996 we formed. We actually called ourselves Recorded Delivery. So homage there to Rick's unreleased solo album. Yeah, I didn't ever profess to be that good on guitar. I'm still not, but I tend to think, right, that song's pretty good. I'll try and learn that and get halfway with it. And then someone will say, that sounds all right, but not quite recognize what it is. So I then go off and write my own song around that. And, I wrote one back then called Flying Debris. I thought, well, if we named the band after Rick's solo album, I'll do that after Francis's. But we played songs like Caroline and Paper Plane. They went down really well. But quite an oddity that, it was around the time of Britpop. And yes, we'd do some Oasis and Blur in there, but, it would open the Quo. And the locals in Guernsey sort of understood the connection. Quo played there 4 years before, and, that then happened.
So it really sounds like they had a real effect on literally everything in your life. I can definitely relate to that. I mean, writing a song called Flying Debris, which, of course, for those uninitiated, is the name of Rossi Frost's unreleased solo album. A lot of unreleased solo albums at that period. Yeah. How did you find out about such things? Because that would have been pre-internet.
Yeah, I became quite a Quo obsessive, if you like. So any bit of information I could get sort of from old news articles and books. Just for the Record obviously came out in 93. So that was then a Christmas present I had as well. Yeah, sort of going through that. Yeah, a couple of other connections over the years. There was a documentary filmed, I think it was about 97, 98. And there was a guy on it who, they interviewed him, and he said, look, I'm absolutely transfixed. When they walk on, there's no one else there. Wembley Arena, tens of thousands of people, I can just see Quo and that. I said, what's it you actually do? And he said, I'm an accountant at Ernst & Young. And he actually, I do know him from my days in Guernsey. And he met up with Quo afterwards, just sort of in passing, and they got to know him, called him Harry the Dosh. So a bit of sort of inside stuff over the years. And, with the Steel Span stuff, I'll just sort of be tuned into it, really. I even then chose to go to university in South London. No university on Guernsey, had to go somewhere. And I thought, well, South London, Quo came out of there. And I went to Kingston upon Thames. So there were a few sort of connections around there. And I did bump into them every so often. But the most sort of interesting about, I'd say, is I accidentally walked onto the set of the Way It Goes video. And I just started university. And a mate of mine and we walked into the shopping centre at lunchtime just to go and get some food or whatever. And another friend from my course coming out, he obviously didn't know I was a major Quo fan at that point. But the friend that I went to go to lunch with did. And this friend walked out and she goes, oh, Dan, you're into music, aren't you? Status Quo are here filming a video. My mate then said, oh, God, right. And then I didn't go back to university that day. I was in there. I'm in the background of the video. I met all the band, all the road crew, the management, and so on. Didn't get much time to speak to Rossi and Parfit, but all the other guys were so accommodating. And Rhino then remembered me. The guy from Guernsey. He said since when I bumped into him. Another time I was pulling pints around the corner years later, and I bumped into him, and he remembered who I was. And he said, oh, we're just up the road rehearsing at the moment. We've got a gig coming up. It's Shepherd's Bush. And this was for the pre-release video performance for Famous in the Last Century. And he said, oh, hang on, if I've got my copy, I've just got to give him my copy. Look, you can have it. Now, he'd lost it, unfortunately. It was a bit of a shame. But it just goes to show what a sort of genuine guy he is. I've got so much time for him. I didn't ask the question of, oh, can I come along to your rehearsal? I'm kicking myself a bit from that, but I can imagine they'd probably say no.
There's so much to unpack there, isn't there? I mean, bumping into the band on several occasions, especially when you weren't expecting to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the video for that obviously is, as you say, shot in a shopping centre. And those things always look kind of out of control, but I can imagine it was quite a controlled environment.
Yeah, it was. They had set up different areas that they were filming in and cordoned bits off. We were told where we could stand. And it was the first time I'd heard the single as well. It's not like these days when you perhaps get a preview online or a small clip. It was, right, this is a fresh thing. And, you know, with particularly like in the Rock to Your Drop era, I then would say the next step to an album I really enjoyed was Under the Influence, just for that rawness again. And so it was superb hearing that. It was playback to everything, but the drums, Jeff Rich was still sort of hammering away. So it's sort of quite loud hearing all that.
And of course, that was towards the end of his time in the band.
Yes, yeah. Again, he was sort of really accommodating and yeah, a good guy. I've seen him a couple of times since his Triple J project. Saw him at that a few years ago. Good, solid drummer.
Did he play too fast, though, in your opinion?
On some stuff, yes, but you know, I put the blame on all that not at Jeff's door at all. That was Rossi and Parfit getting perhaps a bit lazy with things, and a lot of their performance, they do play to click tracks. I understand when their inner ear monitors came in, rather losing the wedges at the front of the stage. A lot of that came in, I believe. So it wasn't necessarily Jeff setting the pace.
Well, having been involved in and out of the band for many years, you've also bumped into Bob Young, haven't you?
Yes. So that's an interesting story. Bob, what a guy, an absolute gent. He, the Quo conventions is so sort of generous with his time. And he, I've been to all three so far. I can't wait for the next one. They're so well organised, and hats off to Yvonne and co on that. But Bob had done a talk, sort of going through the years, and he put up pictures from he was going through the sort of diesel band period with John Coghlan, and he put a photo up and he commented saying, I'm not sure quite where this was taken, but these are the people in the photo and so on. After his talk, he just went back into the audience, and it so happened I was sat next to Mrs. Young, and so he sat right next to me. So I said, oh, nice to meet you, Bob, and thanks ever so much for that. I said, that photo that you didn't know where it was from, I can tell you exactly where that is, and I've got the Associated Press article. He said, oh, why would you have that? I said, well, it was given to me not so long ago, actually, by my dad, who found it in our loft. And my dad had kept the paper because it registered my birth in it. And so pretty much the same week that I was born, Diesel played in Guernsey and Jersey as well. And there was the review in there. And I thought, well, that's, quite something. That's my Quo link. Right from day one.
Such a coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah. So he collects. He's a bit like Bill Wyman for the Stones. In terms of just collecting all this sort of associated stuff and being on the inside. That's certainly Bob's been great at that. So I did copy it and send him a copy of that article. It was a good review.
Bob is a known collector, as you say. He picks up things, and recently he gave away quite a bit as part of a competition for the fan club, which I thought was really generous. I didn't enter. Did you enter?
I didn't. I had most of it, and I thought, well, that could go to someone else. The only thing I'd be really keen on would be the gold disc. I do have one gold disc, and that was something organised through the fan club at the Millennium. So it's got my name on it, presented by Quo. And lots of comments on that. It's in my sort of music room.
So what's that a gold disc for?
It was just awarded to fans on the Millennium.
Right.
Interestingly, it wasn't signed by Jeff Rich. So it was it's only got the 4 signatures there. It's before Matt joined. So in between there, I've got another very weird connection over that, an unbelievable story. So I'm a building surveyor by background, and would have been before I left London. I now live in Bristol, and I've been in Bristol since about 2005. So it would have been, I think, 2002, 2003. I did just an inspection of a building. It was unoccupied, but quite soon it became obvious it was a place, just a very small shop, where they made these gold discs, and they had made that gold disc there. I saw parts that were obviously for it, to assemble for it. And interestingly, he had a whole set of Bob's Quo and Country project. He had some of the singles, the Living on an Island single he did from it there, but never got to meet the owner, because I thought, oh, that'd be really interesting. At that point, I was just a trainee. I thought, with my boss, no, I'm not going to go overboard here, but I was quite excited about that.
It seems as though they just follow you everywhere.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
I mean, you also told me beforehand that you got given autographs at your wedding.
Yeah, so my brother, bless him, he's only a year younger, and he's put up with my Quo obsession for years. His equivalent would have been Metallica, but obviously based in the States, and don't play as often in this part of the world. He hasn't been as fortunate as I have to see Quo that often. I've dragged him along a couple of times, but he, in anticipation of my wedding, which was getting on for 10 years ago, he wrote to Quo's management, and at the wedding, he told everyone this story of how he went about doing this. And it was this really long email of, look, Dan's been to loads of Quo gigs, got every album, probably, has got some copies of songs the band don't even have, and all sorts of stuff like that. And look, he's getting married here. It would just be absolutely awesome. You could do some autographs or something like that. And he just got this sort of one-liner back going, yeah, enough, Steve. Yeah, that's fine. You've convinced us. We'll sort it. And so he got these autographs through, and put this framed presentation for us together, which was really nice. But he was getting married the same year, and so he mentioned this to his wife, saying, "Wouldn't it be really nice if someone did this for me?" For Metallica. And so his wife to be tried it. And they just came out with a one-liner saying, "No, we don't do that sort of thing." I thought, well, that's the mark, isn't it? Quo are just so sort of accessible, stroke grateful for their fans, and I think that's quite a testament to them, really.
Yeah, it definitely shows a generosity towards their fans, and a really kind of down to earthiness.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to mention this because you mentioned this in your email to me, but I can hear my listenership dropping off a cliff as I say this. Quo Acoustic.
Yes. So years ago, when there was the Quo message board, I was quite an avid user on that. A couple of the fans on there put together a charity project. One of the first ones for the Shona charity. And it was a project called Acoustic Quotes. And so it was just an invitation for fans to send in recordings of Quo songs represented a different way. And so I mentioned about this folk and blues club in Guernsey. So I do like acoustic music. I play a load of it. I've recorded a couple of projects. And so I did a couple of numbers. I think it was my version of Backwater that went on there. Apparently, copies were given out on the Quo tour bus. So I do just wonder, did it get them thinking? Did that plant a seed?
Well, that and the Coles advert. What did you make of the Aquostic albums?
Being brutally honest, and I've said I like Quo in its raw form. And for it to be called Aquostic stripped bare, it was anything but. And I think they needed to have more faith in themselves to actually do a proper strip back thing. It didn't need the kitchen sink being thrown in on it, to be honest. I thought that detracted from it. It's still, it was nice. It was a novelty thing. I've, got both the albums, and it's not something I go back to often when I'm in the mood for it. But I liked that they attempted plenty of songs that I perhaps wouldn't have thought could be represented in that way. That was bold. things like Lover of the Human Race, to hear that, I thought, that was good.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, when I saw that on the track listing, I was like, what, Lover of the Human Race? This random song from an album that they barely acknowledge. I mean, it definitely showed, certainly for all the detractors of that album, that there was some great songwriting on it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, they're brilliant musicians. They really are. And it was just strange to me that they need to have some more faith in themselves, I think.
Well, I know perhaps many fans wanted it to be the arrangement of Rain on the first Aquostic album, all of it being like that, like this slow, stripped down. That's kind of what you would have expected, but to have a string section, an accordion. I mean, it was Geraint Watkins, so, the guy's a legend and has played with Quo before on the Don't Stop album. Again, listenership cliff covers albums, but it was an interesting experiment, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I just thought it was perhaps too biased in that direction.
In what way?
Too much of the backing singers, the additional arrangements. The mix was a bit too thick for me, and the same when they performed it live. They didn't need 4 or 5 guitarists playing the same thing. Some of the other types of music I go and see, whether it's a 3 or 4 piece rock band or acoustic band, it's still, I'll come away thinking, yeah, that's great. I will very rarely go to. I did see Bruce Springsteen once and came away thinking the same thing. It's like it's almost a just wall of sounds. It's cacophonous, and because I suppose my sound engineering sort of element, like at a Quo gig, I rarely venture close to the front. I mean, I'm quite tall anyway, so I'm conscious of blocking people's view, but I will naturally migrate to pretty much in front of the sound man. For me, that's going to be the best sound in the house. It's just going to be balanced and what have you. Having said that, I did once get front row at the NEC. That was really quite something. But she was my fiance at the time. Nearly not after this, but she did lose the tickets once we got in the venue. She went to the loo and she'd lost them. But thankfully she went back in, and this little old lady said, "Oh, are you looking for these?" It's like, yeah. And that was quite an experience, because there was certainly a different relationship with the band, seeing them at sort of close quarters like that. I mean, they gave us all plectrums, and I don't know if I should mention this. Francis actually farted, but apologized to us. It was hilarious. It's like, oh, sorry about that. Priceless.
It's all right. Things like that happen all the time.
It's just show business, yeah.
Exactly. Like you say, they're so connected to you, it seems. How many times have you seen them live?
I've stopped counting. It's not loads and loads. Some of my mates might think it is, but I was seeing them 2 or 3 times a tour, probably for 20 years. I decided for the last night of the Electrics tour, when that was announced, I purchased 4 sets of tickets for that, and did go to all those gigs, but it was after Rick had his heart attack, and very early on in that. And I do think Richie's great. He's a brilliant ambassador for Quo, and hats off to him, and I'm jealous as hell. But he's great. But I just felt at the time, seeing them, that the genie had gone from the bottle. Rick just added so much to it, in the sound, the look, the feel, the vibe, which can never really be replaced. And I was also thinking these gigs are getting pretty expensive to go to, and the standard in a lot of the covers bands is phenomenal. And I was so glad to hear the other day the announcement for the Swedish band coming over for the next convention, who played the one up in Scotland, the McVention, the other day. I can't remember the name of them.
Big Fat Mama, is that?
Yes.
Yep.
That some of their videos, oh boy, they are superb. So really looking forward to that. So I just thought, I prefer to go and see more of the sort of smaller, intimate gigs with the covers bands who really know their stuff. But with this latest tour announced during COVID, I thought, well, they're on my doorstep. They're playing in Bath. It's the last night of the tour. Why not? So I said to my wife, do you fancy going? She said yes. And then as time went on, I thought, my boy he'll be 8 years old by then. So I'm said to my wife, do you fancy, I take him along instead? She said, go on then. So I'm going to see if I can sort of pass on the mantle.
I mean, are they aware of how much you love it, or do you kind of keep it secret when you're at home?
A bit of that. It's a bit difficult to do that. But I suppose I play it down. And I always felt, you find these things yourself. Fine if you get exposed to them. Like my dad playing cassette in the car and me then going, oh, what's that? That's fine. But for me to say, look, listen to this. This is brilliant. I've never done that. But my kids, they absolutely adore Whatever You Want. And in particular, Rick Parfitt's solo album has been played to death in our house. Twinkle Toes. So my 5-year-old, her rocking horse, she named Twinkle Toes after that. So, I do hope. I thought, okay, if he doesn't like it, it's not the end of the world. It's just around the corner. Then we'll go home. But it should be a really good night out, I hope.
Well, hopefully. I've seen some great reviews for it, and the videos look really impressive. It looks like they have overhauled the set list, which is something that I did not think I would see. There's kind of a different arrangement of things. Are you aware of that? Do you keep that a secret beforehand, or do you like to see what you're going to see?
I used to years ago, and then kind of got out the habit of it because they just didn't change anything for years and years. That again, I was thinking, come on, have more faith in yourselves, guys. Put yourself up to a bit of a challenge. One of the most memorable gigs that I ever went to was in 2003, the first night of the Riffs tour at Guildford, and they tried a really experimental change in set. It was regarded as very biased towards hardcore stuff on there, and the next night they'd reverted back.
So what was that? What was the set list, if you can remember? What were they playing?
Okay, so it had in there Backwater, Soft Ride, Paper Plane, Open with Down Down. So that flipped it around because it was always 2/3 to the end. It just had a few of those deeper cuts and moved to the front. So it was like this onslaught. Oh, it had Break the Rules as well, where Francis attempted the solo, which one of the reasons why they dropped it or have very rarely played it was he's always found that a bit of a challenge. But that was played, and just went away thinking like, wow, they finally listened to the message board. But the next time it was sort of reverting back to sort of safer territory. But going to having a look online on what they've been up to recently. Curiosity just got the better of me. And plus, in the interim, people take so many videos, it's almost hard to miss here's a clip of Backing Off that they're playing and what have you. But it'll be good. But they did say in the Fan Club magazine, I believe, that they would be keen on trying out. Oh, it's gone from me now. But it's the one on Backbone where they all contribute in terms of vocals, pretty much.
Would that be what is that song called? Better Take
Is it John
Care?
David? Yes, that's it. I was thinking of Taking Care of Business. But Better Take Care. I thought that would be quite interesting live. Backing Off's a bit of a plodder, I think.
I don't know, because when I heard it on the record, you probably heard him in a review that I did, I was not a fan. I thought this is kind of, like you said, that mid-tempo plodder with a couple of nice elements to it. And then I saw it live on a video, which sounds like a contradictory phrase. But I saw a video of it being played live, and it was like, yeah, I can see this. This really works, and this really fits in with everything else. So I'm sort of converted when it comes to that. I think that that's not a bad song, certainly in a live setting. And I think that's the beauty of the latest material, is a lot of it they could just go out and play live.
Yeah. I love that whole approach to recording, that you work up the number and then try and go in and record it as live as possible. I know it was a bit sort of staggered with that one. Rossi did a lot of it. Obviously, it's his home studio.
Before I let you go, I shall ask you the question I ask everybody. If you can recommend a Quo album to somebody, what would it be?
12 Gold Bars would be the compilation, because I think, well, you've got pretty much everything there that you're signposted to decent albums with. But for an album for the cross-section of variety, I would go for Rock to Your Drop. I think it's got light and shade to it. There's some great sort of performances in there of the arrangements. Nothing comes easy. The guitar work in that is brilliant. Of course, One Man Band, I think, is a powerhouse of a track. That is just great. And Like a Zombie, my word, an album opener with that much energy is great. Of course, 4,500 Times in that remake, that was just incredible.
Yeah, certainly a bridge between the kind of late 80s pop stuff they were doing and to the late 90s. It's kind of that thing in between where
Definitely.
they try out this kind of back to basics thing. Great choice. Excellent choice. Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan, so much for being on the podcast today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jamie. All the best.